I'm John Little, and this is the ShockCast.
Altitude, velocity, light. 8.5 down, 220 feet. 15 forward. 11 forward, coming down nicely.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
Every generation seems to have its version of the World War II leader of Nazi Germany. What would have happened to the world if Adolf Hitler had succeeded in building a nuclear weapon? What would have happened if he had built several of them before launching World War II? Unfortunately, a worse than Hitler has arrived, and they have learned from Hitler's mistakes. Worse, they are fueled by a passion that sees death as a mere inconvenience, and they have genocide on their minds. Would you allow people like that to have nuclear weapons? Because mankind is evil, there will always be war, or preparations for war. This is a fundamental rule of history that only the ignorant and foolish would argue with. Unfortunately, the evil among us have twisted this fundamental rule towards their own corrupt purposes. That's why many of you are appalled at the need to attack Iran's nuclear weapons program. You are justifiably horrified at what evil men and women have done in the past to trick us into war, and you want no part of what they wish for us to do. The Iraq War of 2003 was stupid and an evil thing. That was launched with a lie and sustained by even more lies, and foolish and insane decisions were made throughout. The same goes for the criminal act that became the Vietnam War. I am sickened by how we started that war. I am sickened by many of the things that we did in that war. But a good and honest people will always be vulnerable to scoundrels. Even the first Gulf War was aided by carefully crafted lies. It is true that Iraq should not have been allowed to invade Kuwait, but the lies that were told to convince us to support the war, abominable. And the foul and evil U.S. State Department participated in the lies to convince us to go to war. Unfortunately, our anger over the lies that we've been told is keeping some of us from addressing a real and present danger: a nuclear Iran. If you spend any amount of time studying World War II, you will quickly run into the real desperation that the Allied powers felt when they discovered that Adolf Hitler was intent on building nuclear weapons. Britain and America devoted a tremendous amount of effort to stop the Germans from building a nuclear bomb. If Hitler had just waited for his scientists and engineers to create those nuclear weapons, he would have succeeded in capturing all of Europe and the Middle East, and from there he might even have eventually been successful in conquering North and South America. Nuclear weapons in the hands of Nazi Germany would have led to unimaginable death and destruction. Why was it so dangerous for Nazi Germany to have nuclear weapons? Because of their ideology. The Nazis had a belief system that required them to invade countries and murder their inhabitants. It was a genocidal ideology, and it was because of that system of beliefs and ideals 60 million people died in Europe and Africa. 60 million. All because of what they passionately believed. And please let that sink in. An ideology murdered 60 million people. A system of beliefs and ideas took innocent people and gunned them down in cold blood. A doctrine, a creed, took up weapons and slaughtered millions upon millions of people. How does that make you feel? It should horrify you. It should be so repulsive to you that you would never, ever allow such a thing to ever happen again. Unfortunately, we are letting it happen again. Just like we allowed Hitler's Germany to rise and then threaten the world, we are allowing Iran to build nuclear weapons and a military-industrial complex that will be used to take over the Middle East if Iran is not stopped. And the most dangerous thing about Iran is her ideology. Just like Hitler's Germany, Iran has an insane system of beliefs and ideals, and its insanity is wrapped in a religion called Twelver Shi'ism. I talked about this recently, but it bears repeating. In fact, let me do a quick search to find someone else to quote instead of inflicting my own thoughts on you for the umpteenth time. And on the first page of this Bing search, I found this, and what must happen for, it's called, the search is called, What Must Happen for the 12th Imam to Appear? And right there on the first page, I saw this video by Glenn Beck. It's titled, The 12th Imam is Apparently Here. Here's what it means. And the important part of that short clip is here.
It's the 12th Imam. And when the 12th Imam, the way you hasten the return of the Promised One, and if you read their religious texts, it's the exact mirror opposite of the book of Revelation. Their bad guy is our good guy. Our good guy is their bad guy. And the way you hasten the return is you nuke Israel. You spread blood across the entire planet.
That's from 2 years ago, and the whole clip is a good one, and I'll provide links to all 4 video clips at the end and below for those of you watching via YouTube. Now, I'm not a fan of Glenn Beck. I disagree with him on some pretty important issues, so I'm uncomfortable using him as a source. But he's right about what Iran believes in terms of the reappearance of the 12th Imam, the Imam Mahdi. I'm just not ready yet to claim that the Mahdi is the Antichrist. But let's not stop with Glenn Beck. Here's this video of a child soldier during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s.
با سلام به امام زمان عجل الله تعالی فرجه الشریف و نائب برحقش این قلب تپنده مستضعفان جهان امام خمینی.
The full video is titled Amazing Words by Iranian Child Soldier Shahid, Martyr, Mehrdad Azizollahi, Iran-Iraq War. That poor 14-year-old kid died on the front lines of this war 30-something years ago. And this interview, before he was killed, shows the incredible passion that the Iranians have for their reappearance of their Imam Mahdi. And they truly believe what their supreme leader tells them. And it was his parents that sent him to the front lines. He wanted to go, and they let him go. Could you send one of your little children into such a meat grinder of a war? His parents never saw him again, and the thought of how they must have felt when they heard of his death and buried his broken body is heartbreaking. The point to take away from all of this is that those who are the core supporters of the Iranian regime believe what their supreme leader says. They are passionate about what he is saying and are willing to sacrifice their lives and the lives of their children. This is deadly serious to them and something that is completely alien to the vast majority of Americans. We Americans have lived such a protected and coddled life that we don't understand what Iranians indicate when they say that they will set the world on fire so that their Imam Mahdi can return. We might struggle to treat that seriously, but they aren't joking. This is not a game for them. They are completely and utterly determined to make this happen. Worse, they believe that all of their sins and transgressions will be wiped away if they sacrifice their lives for Islam and their supreme leader. Adolf Hitler didn't have a fraction of that kind of devotion from his core followers. He certainly could not claim that dying for his cause would lead to the cleansing of sin and eternal life. So when the supreme leader of Iran launches World War III, he will do so with the knowledge that his people will gladly sacrifice their lives to bring the 12th Imam, the Imam Mahdi, into the world. Remember that the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, claims to have met with the 12th Imam. Khamenei says that the 12th Imam promised that he will return before Khamenei's rule is over. And there are reports that the Ayatollah is claiming that the 12th Imam is already here, just invisible. Whatever the facts, it should be clear that these people have a serious fixation upon this Mahdi guy and want to create the conditions for him to return. Should we allow someone like this to manufacture nuclear weapons? Of course not. The following video makes a great argument for why Iran should not be allowed to own a nuclear anything. It's called Iran and the Bomb. In that video, you will see this right about the 1-minute mark.
It's not nuclear weapons that are the problem. It's who has them and what they might do with them. We do not worship Iran, we worship Allah, said Iranian leader Ayatollah Khomeini in 1980. I say, let this land burn. I say, let this land go up in smoke, provided Islam remains triumphant in the rest of the world. A militant nation that does not fear its own destruction is a sure threat to its enemies. And that threat is taken to a whole new level if the militant nation arms itself with nuclear weapons.
The only criticism that I have for that video is in Bret Stephens' allegation that Iran might use the bomb. I say that he's wrong. Iran will use the bomb if they have one. When Iran gets enough nuclear weapons for what they want to use them for, they will use them. All of them. Everyone who looks cross-eyed at them will get nuked, and the use of nuclear electromagnetic pulse attacks, or EMP, to neutralize all electronics and destroy all electric power generation will be among the worst of their attacks, since up to 90% of a population would die. North America will be destroyed. Europe will be neutralized. The Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia will be conquered. All that we have to do is give them enough time to create the weapons that they need, and under the Obama administration agreement with Iran called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, all that Iran needed to do was wait. And then she could make all the nukes that she could possibly want. In fact, don't take my word for it. Take the word of those who are the primary targets of Iran's nuclear ambitions, the Israelis. It's called Inside Iran's Nuclear Weapons Plan. According to Israel, and anyone with more than half a brain, the JCPOA allowed Iran to keep all of her centrifuges. This means that Iran will eventually be able to move full steam ahead. Here's what the video says about that agreement.
Now this is a big problem. Let's do a little bit of math to understand why. It takes between 2,500 and 3,000 centrifuges operating for a full year to enrich enough uranium for one nuclear bomb. Iran has a total of 19,000 centrifuges, which, if operated together, can produce a bomb within 6 to 7 weeks.
That video was made exactly 5 years ago, in 2014, by Naftali Bennett, the Israeli Minister of Diaspora Affairs. How many of those centrifuges were still running during that time? How many bombs do they have right now? And since they have proclaimed that they will be no longer be held under the terms of the JCPOA, how many more bombs will they have next month, next year? In the time that it takes for someone somewhere to decide to neutralize Iran's nuclear weapons capacity, how many nukes will Iran have? How many will they need to launch World War III? How many will die? The bottom line is this: the world cannot allow Iran to build an arsenal of nuclear weapons. It is completely unacceptable for them to have even one nuclear weapon, let alone the hundreds that they intend to make. And unfortunately, America is the only country with the capability and willingness to take out Iran's nuclear weapons infrastructure. It must be done. Will they do it? Tune in next time when I talk about what that means. Hey, you like that video, right? Great. Click like and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. Then go to the next level. Subscribe to the Shock Letter at theshockletter.com and follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Now, read my book, Ezekiel's Fire, at ezekielsfire.com. Why? Because Ezekiel's Fire is coming.